Welcome back to the My Tesla channel. My name is Jeremiah, and in this one, I'm going to be going over 12 things that you should avoid doing with your Tesla. Ranging from you should probably avoid doing this as it'll make your ownership experience a little bit worse, all the way to this will literally destroy your car. Now, before we get started, I just want to quickly say thank you all so much for 5,000 subscribers. I really do appreciate each and every one of you for watching my videos. So starting us off with the first thing on the list, this could literally damage your Tesla. Slamming the front trunk or just not properly closing it. Most ICE cars require the hood to be slammed to close it, but for a Tesla, that's not the case. Tesla has a specific way that can be found in the car's manual to close the front. Now, what model of Tesla you have will determine how the front should be closed. The Model Y and 3, you close those the same way, but if you have an S or an X, then it is a little bit different. For my Model 3, it states to bring the hood down until the latch makes contact. Then with a hand on both sides of the Tesla T, push down until it latches. Applying pressure to any other part of the hood could cause creases or even dents. Next up, we have using the manual door release. Now, there has actually been a recent update to this that you might not know about. As we all know, the proper way to open the door from the inside of the cabin is by pushing the electronic release button. However, if your Tesla has lost power, then these buttons will no longer work and you will have to use the manual door release. Using the manual door release causes the window to not roll down and thus could damage the window or the window sill trim. It's essentially just ripping through it to open. That is until a recent update. If the manual door release is used by mistake and the car still has power, it will now lower the window to prevent damage. Now, while this is great for when you have people that have never ridden in your car and for some reason always instinctively pull the manual door release, I'd still recommend only using it in case of emergencies, like the manual states that you should use it. So moving on to number 3, don't charge to 100%. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that you should never charge to 100%. I mean, don't do this on a frequent basis and or let the car sit. It's completely fine to charge to 100% if you're going on a long road trip and you need the extra range. It's not gonna just magically cause 50% degradation. My rule of thumb that I go by and that I recommend to others is that if you plan to charge to 100%, also plan to leave within 5 minutes of your car reaching 100%. Never just let the car sit at 100%. Also, for anyone wondering about DC fast charging to 100%, well, I really try to avoid that. As I've said in previous videos, it's always faster road tripping wise to make more stops at the lower end of your battery than fewer stops charging at the top end of your battery. You get faster charging speeds the lower your battery is, and it's just better long term for your battery to not be DC fast charged above 80 or 90%. This is also why when you pull up to, let's say, a supercharger and your previous charging limit was set to 100%, it will automatically lower it down to 80 or 90%. It'll pop up on screen saying high-powered charger in use. We've adjusted your charging limit. Not to say that you can't do that, but I would avoid doing it as much as possible. Now, I also want to quickly answer a question that I see a lot of people asking. It's mainly coming from new owners, but that's what should my daily charging limit be set to? Like just on a normal week, you're going to work, car sitting in the garage charging, what should my daily commute charge limit be set to? And while there are a bunch of different people that will say a bunch of different things, including even the owner, Elon Musk, has even said to just set it to, between 70 and 90 and forget about it, I personally keep mine at 50% for my daily commute. That's plenty of range for me to get around, and I don't drive every day, so sometimes there's a few days where the car is just sitting in the garage. I set mine to 50%. Lithium ion likes to be kept nice and low when it's not being driven and it's kind of being stored or just, like I said, not being driven. But for normal people that actually have daily commutes that are a little bit higher, 70 to 90%, whatever works for you. The lower the better, but don't be afraid if you have to use the full 90%, or if you're just getting an EV and you kind of have range anxiety, don't be afraid to put that sucker all the way up to 90%. Now, of course, if you own a rear-wheel drive Model 3 with an LFP battery, you actually do want to charge daily to 100%, as that's just what lithium iron likes. Next up, we have something that isn't really too big of a problem anymore, but we might see a spike in it again soon. That being bypassing software limitations. If you're unaware, a few years back, the Model 3 Long Range came with the same rear motor that the Model 3 Performance did, that being a 980 motor. And thus, people found out that the only thing holding the Model 3 Long Range back from achieving the same performance as the Performance trim was software. So companies began making, and they go by a bunch of different names. The one that I'm most familiar with is called a Ghost chip, to essentially allow long-range owners to unlock the full potential of their car. This is a big no-no. Tesla is able to detect these devices and will even prompt you to remove them. Also, if you actually go and look at some of these software bypassing devices, they will tell you to not update your Tesla until you've came to their site first to make sure that your module that's bypassing software limitations is up to date, and it won't just not let you drive the car. Yeah, you might be improving your 0 to 60 by a whole second and being under 5 seconds for the cost that these modules go for. It's actually really good price to performance. If something were to happen to one of your motors and it needed to go in for a warranty repair, and Tesla was able to prove that the extra power produced by the motor via the software bypass is what caused the issue, they could deny coverage. Now, newer long ranges have a 990 rear motor versus the Performance, which still uses the 980. So newer long ranges can't do this. But with used Tesla prices coming down, like some older long ranges that actually do have a 980 rear motor, the 2018s and the 2019s, I forget exactly when they switched them over to the 990s, we might start seeing some new used owners looking at going down this route. I mean, older Model 3 long range, $35K, you spend another grand to get the essentially performance power. It's going to be tempting, but I would highly recommend not doing it. This is, unless you're out of warranty, then, do whatever. Now on to number 5, we have something else that your Tesla can detect that is also a big no-no. Autopilot bypass devices. These are essentially counterweights that you hang on the car's steering wheel that essentially tricks the car into thinking that your hand is on the wheel. But like I said, Tesla is able to detect these, and it will result in the car prompting you to remove said device. As of right now, I don't know of anyone that's actually been punished beyond just Autopilot turning off and not being available for the rest of the trip. But with FSD beta going wide release, I could see Tesla disabling Autopilot or full self-driving for a longer time frame because you're breaking TOS and misusing the software. I could definitely see them maybe restricting it for a week, 2 weeks, even a month. Also, it's just irresponsible. Pay attention to the road and keep your hand on the wheel. Now, I do know that some people were using these devices and still paying attention to their surroundings and what's going on simply because that the Autopilot nag was very annoying, and sometimes you wouldn't even see the pop-up or blue screen flash, especially now the pop-up is in an awful place because it's right where the new music player is, so yeah, but for those people, well, there is some good news. Elon has recently said on Twitter that an update is coming to remove the apply force nag. It's not yet known if there will be any certain criteria you need to meet in order for your car to stop nagging you, but the tweet he responded to mentioned 10,000 miles driven on FSD beta. Next up, we have something that I preach, and I will continue preaching. Do not take your Tesla to a touch car wash. In general, no car should go to a touch car wash because they're just really bad for the paint, but especially Teslas. Tesla paint is already so soft and thin that you're just asking to get scratches and swirl marks everywhere. I worked at a touch car wash for a few years back in my late teens, and no matter how much they try to convince you that, oh, our brushes are made out of this fabric, so it's impossible for it to scratch your car, they're lying. They're lying to you. I have a full car wash video that you can check out. It's super safe, simple. You can do it anywhere, even if you don't have access to running water. Car comes out looking flawless. And once you get it down, you can do it in about 30 to 45 minutes. I'll link that video below. Sticking to the topic of cleaning, one of the best ways to ruin your Tesla seats is by using abrasive cleaners. Tesla seats come from the factory with a coating on them to help protect them long term. So if you're using an abrasive cleaner, you should probably stop. Tesla recommends you clean the seats with some warm water and a non-detergent cleaner. A lot of people have also found really good results from fragrance-free / natural baby wipes. Also want to mention, for the people that have seen those videos about ceramic coating your seats, please don't. It's not safe to use abrasive cleaners on the coating that comes from the factory, so why would you put something that you literally need to wear gloves and not breathe in and let the car air out on your seats? Plus, it's not raining on your seats. You're not spilling the double gulp cup on your seats every single day. It's pointless. It can damage the seats, and I just don't get why people do it. Now for number 8, curb rash and how to prevent it. This applies to every Tesla owner, but especially for performance owners that have the Uber turbine wheels. Because Tesla decided to keep the same tire size as their previous performance wheels, that being the turbines, but they increased the size of their new Uber turbines, this gives the new Uber turbines a stretched look while also making them very, very easy to curb. You have such little sidewall. Now, I ran my Uber turbines for 4 months, and I'm happy to report that I never curbed them once, and well, here's how. Just avoid parking next to curbs, duh. Okay, in reality, if you need to park next to a curb, my tip is to always back into it. You have a backup camera, which is nice, but you also have 2 side cameras that do a very good job at showing just how close your back wheels are to getting destroyed. If you pull in, you can't see your front wheels, but backing in, you can line up your back wheels and then just straighten up the car. This is the only thing I've done, and I've never curbed my Ubers, and I also never curbed my Arrows back when I owned my long range. Now, if you hit a pothole that's big enough to curb your Ubers, well, there's nothing you can really do about that. Okay, so now number 9, 10, and 11 are all going to be somewhat related, so I'm just going to group them together. Essentially anything to do with a cold battery. First is supercharging / DC fast charging. If you're not preconditioning your battery before fast charging, this is going to heavily limit how much power you can pull, and it's also just going to make you wait at these chargers even longer. And in some cases, if your battery is so cold, it won't even charge the car until it actually brings the battery temperature up. Next is just driving on a cold battery in general. Want to know the best way to cut your efficiency in half? Drive on a cold battery. Not only is the car using up battery, trying to warm the battery to improve efficiency, it's also using the battery to drive, but because it's so cold, not very efficiently. So always precondition before you have to go on a drive if it's cold out. And then number 11, extreme acceleration or deceleration when the battery is cold. Of course, this is very inefficient. If you've ever been out and it's cold and you've stomped the accelerator, you just see it eat through your battery. But I've heard some other people talking about recent reports that show extreme acceleration with a cold battery can cause increased, more rapid battery degradation. Now, in order to precondition the car to negate number 9, 10, and 11, just turn on your HVAC system. And then if you need to precondition even faster, just route to a nearby supercharger on your infotainment screen. This will kick your battery heaters to the max. Like, you will hear it preconditioning. Finally, number 12, I feel like most people know not to do this, but just want to make sure, as this could literally destroy your car. Don't use your Tesla as a boat. If you don't know what I'm talking about, a few years back, Elon Musk mentioned something along the lines of, your Tesla can act as a boat for a few seconds because it's watertight. And well, most people knew what he meant. You know, if you go through a big puddle, you're gonna be fine, but some people have taken it literally and just drive through flooded areas of their own free will. Of course, if it's life or death at stake and the only way out is using your Tesla as a way to clear the water, then I mean, well, you got to do what you got to do, and that's why you have insurance. But for people just not wanting to turn around and go a different route because they heard their car is a boat, well, it's going to be your fault when your car just magically stops working or catches fire randomly. Because, well, you thought it was actually a boat. Yeah, it might work, but there's going to be some repercussions. But those are 12 things that you probably shouldn't do to your Tesla. Like I said, ranging from it's going to make your ownership experience a little bit worse to, yeah, don't use your Tesla as a boat. It's going to destroy it. If you have any more things to add that I missed, then drop a comment down below for others to see. If you are new around here and you do want to see more Tesla related content like this video, then feel free to subscribe. I'd appreciate it. Don't forget to drop a like if you enjoyed the video, as it really helps out the channel, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.